Hello everyone, this is part 5 of What If Naruto Was Abused and Obtained Mokuton, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to see more comment down below. Sakura smiled happily, taking in the warm breath of the hidden leaf. This overwhelming emotion that threatened to her with grins and a dash across the village to announce her return to home was something she had missed while thousands of miles away from home. More than a month of snow, and now she was back where she belonged. The place where she felt safe and free. The place where she didn't have to constantly look over her shoulders because someone might attack. A place where she didn't feel like a burden to anyone. She couldn't even wait to see the look on Ino's face when she tells her of her great adventure. Disappointedly, she wouldn't be doing much in the movie. Either way, this had been a great experience. Home, finally, Sakura exclaimed happily. Naruto glanced at the girl and then looked back at the monstrous village gates before looking back at the streets. They were indeed back to this place called home. He was happy. But it didn't take long for Konoha to remind him that he was not wanted. Either way, the rush of blood was there. The content emotion gripped his heart fully and blocked any other disruptive emotion that threatened to put a sad veil across his face. Regardless of the tragedies, this was still his home. He was born here and he would make it here. I thought our time in the snow was quite lovely. I wouldn't have been against staying there for a little longer. Nobody likes you here. Sakura snapped back at him, without thinking much of her words. Ouch. Naruto put on a hurt look. Your words can really hurt at times, Sakura. He then wiped out an imaginary tear. How ignorant was she going to be? Was she going to continue blocking everything in favor of her obsession with Sasuke? If she was going to continue with this attitude, it was better she was removed from the team. Did she even have any idea just how right she was, and this was the source of his misery and loneliness? An ignorant little girl indeed. You should be more careful with your words, Sakura. You speak of things you do not understand. Much to the surprise of everyone else, and maybe a shock to Sakura, it was Sasuke who spoke. His tone had been so cold, even Naruto felt shook. Sakura looked baffled. Sasuke reproaching her. What the hell was happening here? Was someone conspiring against her? It was Kakashi's glass-shattering news, and now it was this. She had been called useless by Sasuke before and Naruto hinted it. But for her to end a mission like this, her happiness was just completely drained. She could brush off the words as nothing more than a spare-of-the-moment thing, but that cold look that she had often seen reserved for the empty space was now glaring at her. She flinched with discomfort and looked down. After a moment, she glanced at her sensei. He was reading his book, casually walking with one hand inside his pocket. Her eyes went to Naruto. Their eyes met. He was smiling. A kind of infuriating smile. She thought he was mocking her. As he usually did. Well, there is some truth in that, if we are to be honest. You often make light of the circumstances that surround us. Me, especially. You may dismiss me because I am an orphan. But fail to sympathize. You do not understand what Sasuke and I have to go through because we do not have parents. It is not that you cannot. You just don't want. He paused, just to let the words sink in. I suppose if you must want to, you need to understand why Sasuke and I can get along. Sakura frowned deeply. Sympathize with Naruto. Ridiculous. First of all, their situations were not the same. Sasuke lost his parents while Naruto had never had any. She wanted to shout at him. Think it deeply. Kakashi's sharp and stern words cut through her thoughts like a double-edged sword. The man wasn't even looking at her. What was there to think about? Naruto never had any parents and thus he wasn't taught anything by anyone. What was it even like not to have a mother? To go home and just be alone with no one to love you. Both her teammates were now going through the same situations. There was no one waiting for them. They were just going to their places and just be alone. She gritted her teeth and shoved those deep thoughts at the back of her head. She saw it clearly, but she didn't want to swallow it. Sorry. The word came out without any meaning. And Naruto knew it. His response said as much. How hollow. Naruto's sharp response. Shove that up your useless behind, Sakura. For a moment, Sakura stopped walking, her body tense. She felt as if she'd been stabbed. There was no anger in Naruto's voice. It was the simplicity in which he said it that made her afraid. Kakashi just sighed and shut his book. Naruto was going to be normal tomorrow. He wasn't going to let this get to him. But perhaps it was better to give them some space to think things through. You go on and rest. I will report to the Sandaime Hokage. I will also request a break for the next 7 days to help us recuperate. That is welcome, Naruto said, in a staring contest with the heavens. For the first time, he didn't feel like training and just wanted to rest. I hope the Sandaime agrees. He will. Kakashi-sensei, Sakura started a bit hesitantly. The journey through to Konoha made her fearful. She didn't want to go home. She knew what was likely waiting for her. Humiliation. It haunted her even in daylight. This part was made her afraid. She bit her tongue. The talk just now hadn't really improved her image in the team. It seemed like everyone was against her. She needed to take a stand or otherwise, she would be gone. Yes. About my training. When do you think I can begin? I don't want to be a burden anymore. If Sakura hadn't said those words, Kakashi would have reported to the Sandaime that things would need to change in the team. Her attitude was still a problem. Admittedly, even her lack of professionalism was all due to him as her sensei. He failed to train her. He wasn't going to force her. But he has chosen to play the referee in many situations and just an observer rather than the sensei. It was owed to that Naruto and Sasuke were proactive. He only taught Sasuke his jutsu to make up for the gap with Naruto. This was after the Uchiha asked him. He would have refused under normal circumstances, but they did missions which were dangerous. And the power was needed. I'll make a plan and contact you. But also think about the kind of kunoichi you want to be. With your chakra control, genjutsu and medical ninjutsu can be your specialty. The Jonin said before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. There was only one thing for Naruto to do now before going to his abode, and that was to have some godly ramen. Naruto glanced at Sasuke. See you in a week, team. And I hope you will have improved a little so that I don't always outshine you. It was always fun seeing Sasuke twitch with jealousy. The Uchiha glared at him. I was the one who provided an opening for the defeat of our opponents. Naruto shrugged. But I was the one who was flashy. We worked together. Naruto smiled. That we did. At least we are able to together. See you around, team. He waved his right hand, walking away. Sakura didn't even see how Sasuke departed. She was just left alone, wondering where he disappeared off to. Hokage office. Maybe if things were different, Hiruzen wouldn't have cared to intervene with his team by going as far as to remove Sakura from it. The Sandaime used to shy away from taking some hard-line decisions. Something Danzo had often called naivety. He smiled, to think he'd once been approached by that man to kill Konoha's Hokage. More shocking was the fact that the man who committed treason was still very much alive. He wasn't doing as he pleased, but still alive. When Naruto went missing, the third had worn a mask Kakashi had never seen before. Ruthless. Cunning, he had always been, but never ruthless. In those days, he had shown no mercy to anyone who may have had a hand in Naruto's disappearance. But they were here, and he had to convince the man to keep hold of his plans to remove Sakura. Kakashi needed his team to stay intact. There was no predicting how the new teammate would adapt to the team or if the team would have to adapt to him or her. Who'd even be put on the team to compare with Naruto and Sasuke? Very few could match those two. Releasing a long breath, Kakashi knocked at the door of the Sandaime's office. Come in. The warm smile of an elderly man who cared deeply for his shinobi welcomed him. Serving under Hiruzen was nothing to regret about. You knew the man cared for you. It hardly mattered nonetheless. They were shinobi. They were subordinates of the Hokage and insubordination was not tolerated. Hokage-sama. Kakashi greeted. Kakashi. Hiruzen smiled warmly. I wish you'd come back with your students. I do like seeing them when they return from a mission. Especially one as important as this. I thought it was best to allow them to get some rest. Though knowing Naruto and Sasuke, there was unlikely to be any rest. Those two would only rest when incapacitated. They do spend a lot of time away. With the number of missions they have put they've genin for 3 years. Well, they are no longer fresh from the academy. Indeed. But I still worry. Naruto. Hiruzen sighed. He was not as close to Naruto as he would like. Their relationship hadn't taken a knock after Orochimaru happened. Naruto was just never willing to talk into detail about it. But since some heartbreaking discoveries, Naruto no longer looked at him as his Gigi. He no longer just wandered into his office to complain or try to drag him out for ramen. It was usually just work and nothing personal. Naruto was disappointed with me knowing that I knew why he was hated but kept it from him. For whatever reason he deemed rational, Hiruzen had done what he did. It was stupid, and he couldn't even try to justify his own actions. But there has never been that talk with Naruto. They just brushed past it. But it was never about the details. Maybe Naruto thought he'd deceive him again. It was a tragedy but a fruit of his stupid choice and he had to live with it. Well, not surprising, but he doesn't seem to hold grudges, against the villagers at least. And even with Sakura, she was rude, but he was still going to chat with her tomorrow as if nothing had happened. We should be thankful for that. Konoha has not done him any justice. If he were anyone, he'd hold a grudge against everything that has been done to him. The sad part about it would be that it would be rational to do so. It was just that hatred never led to anything peaceful. It was always pain and suffering. And to Orochimaru, there is no doubt that he hates him more than anything, Kakashi added. Yes, that is a problem. And after reading your report about your encounter with him, it makes it more pressing of an issue. Problematic, but that was why he had to get rid of Orochimaru. He was going to come back for Naruto. He had already caused enough pain and suffering in the elemental nations. He expressed particular interest in Sasuke as well. He just didn't show it outwardly. I think Sasuke may have been his target. Hiruzen leaned back to his chair and thought deeply. When we raided Orochimaru's hideouts, we came across some valuable documents. He developed a jutsu that allows him to take over someone's body. It is perhaps his answer to immortality. In this way, he can never die. We don't know the full aspects of this jutsu, but he has always been interested in the Sharingan. Obsessed, may be right. Jiraiya has also told me that he tried it with Itachi but failed when he was still with the Akatsuki. It is most likely the reason he left the organization. So, he could be after Sasuke as well. Yes. Hiruzen smiled. We will have to be careful from now on. Naruto and Sasuke are valuable to Konoha. Kakashi nodded. Naruto was using Mokuton more frequently. It may have something to do with Orochimaru. But his usage surprised me. It is at a higher level than that of Yamato. Hiruzen kept his smile. He wasn't surprised about this. Naruto had even said that he didn't use some jutsu because they were not perfect. He has been training since we found him. And diligently so. How strong do you suppose he is? I cannot tell. Naruto hides some of his power. I assume this is so to manage Sasuke. If Sasuke realized the gap was too big, there is no telling what he would do. The Sandaime Hokage sighed at this. You need to get his emotions in order. But how glad he was that Naruto was growing stronger. Yamato was a user but not in the same scale of the Shodai Hokage. In fact, the man did average things. But Naruto had the potential to reach the heights of the first. He had the massive chakra outlay to learn jutsu that Yamato couldn't learn. He was still young with the drive and desire. It is going to be difficult. Only if you gave it time. You don't try hard enough. The third replied in a stern tone. What of your other student? I recall saying this could be her last mission with Team 7. Sakura doesn't take being a kunoichi seriously. She relies too much on her teammates. She is smart and can learn, but it is not her focus. None of her teammates would be cry if she was removed from the team. They are not close. Hiruzen replied with a raised brow. Sasuke, he could understand but not with Naruto. They are. Kakashi paused, trying to think of what to say next. He did believe that the third trusted his judgment, hence he was saying bad things about Sakura, no matter how true they were, despite what he was going to request. But both are reasonable. By that you mean both thought of the situation rationally? Yes. Coldly so. Kakashi said. I would still like to keep Sakura in the team. It is my fault for not training her. I'm lucky that Naruto and Sasuke have ambitions. They don't need me to tell them to train. And they are mature enough. I should have been helping Sakura but instead, I just watched and ensured she stayed afloat rather than teaching her how to swim. It is good that you have realized your own negligence. The third said flatly. Let us hope she improves. Who did you have in mind to replace her? Hiruzen shook his head. I had a feeling you'd work things out. It is not just for Sakura, but for you as well. You hesitate to teach your students the necessary skills because you think there is no need as we are not at war and you want them to live normal lives. Good deeds. But it is misplaced and quite frankly dangerous. Naruto cannot live a normal life. His life has never been normal. He is a Jinchuriki. Sasuke had his entire clan wiped out by his elder brother. Now, in that situation, what normal life do you want him to live? You saw hardships, Kakashi. But they have also seen their hardships as well. And neglecting to give them the tools to face their futures only places risks in their lives. We might be at peace, but know that this is the shinobi world, anything can happen. I understand, Hokage-sama. This is only temporary. What? But you said you didn't have anyone in mind to replace her. Not now, not tomorrow. But both Naruto and Sasuke are growing. Even if she does improve, she cannot match those two. If they are sent for dangerous missions, she'll be out of her breath. It was my fault for putting her there. Regardless, I will start looking for someone who can work out with them. There is no one currently, but I will think of something. Unless she can serve as support. A team does need that. Indeed, it was always a requirement that when teams were sent out for risky missions, someone with knowledge to basic medical ninjutsu was in the team. But we have lost that. Nobody is taught medical ninjutsu. There were times Naruto wished he was ignorant. Just so he could walk in the streets with a free spirit, not feeling like he carried the entire village on his shoulder. Sometimes, it did feel like the Biju within him was dragging him, forcing him to crawl along the streets. It wasn't that he had done something wrong that he could beg for them to forgive him. There was no need, and he wouldn't apologize to anyone. But he did want them to like him. Sometimes, it was just so hard that he couldn't even take a stroll. He could just hop through the rooftops, as he was doing now. Avoidance sometimes worked wonders. What you didn't see didn't hurt you. It didn't take long for Naruto to reach his beloved street. Ichiraku Ramen was calling him. From where he stood, he could breathe the fresh aroma of those noodles. His stomach growled. He quickly slapped it, but it just seemed to get the energy to protest farther. He shook his head and jumped from the roof. He landed on the busy street like a leaf falling off a tree. He smiled, he truly was improving. It was a matter of time before he became a force to be reckoned with. Someone bumped into him while he entertained his hopes. Naruto glanced at the man. A civilian. Whether it was intentional or not was a difficult question to answer. The man hadn't even bothered sparring him glance. He just went his way. Naruto's lips turned upside down as he thought, I don't exist, huh? He shook his head and took 6 steps before settling on a stool. This place welcomed him. It was always fascinating just how he felt right at home while here. Even other customers who turned away because they saw him now sat with him. Those who used to just ignore him now bothered to nod and then went on to devour their meals. There was no place like Ichiraku Ramen. The atmosphere here gave him hope that things could change for the better. Naruto, my boy, Tsuki greeted him with a warm smile. Old man, Naruto flashed a smile. 2 of my favorite. He went right at it. We don't see you that often these days. Missions. Our team does a lot of missions outside the village. He grinned. This one was a special one. Can you believe it? I'm going to be a movie star. Tsuki chuckled lightly. Good for you. But how did you manage that? Being at the right place at the right time. Naruto shrugged. He did have an important role in the movie. But since it was a movie, most people wouldn't dare think it was reality. Their lives had been on the line when they were being filmed and nothing was according to script. Lucky you. I'll prepare your order. Naruto nodded. Konoha could deny what it wants to deny, but they would not stop Naruto Uzumaki from being famous. Since the beloved Sasuke was in the movie and Kakashi, they would no doubt be going after it when it reaches the cinema. After a couple of moments, Tsuki returned with his order. Naruto said his prayers and then dug in. The old man didn't go but kept staring up at him. Something wrong? Tsuki shook his head. I've just been hearing rumors about you. Everything good, I hope. Of course. Tsuki smiled. It makes me proud that you have not given up, Naruto. If you keep this up, you will become the talk of this village in no time. Words of hope. But Naruto would nonetheless not forget that this cruel life could be sadistic at times. It could throw hope to whoever cared to catch, and then puff you up with signs of wonders. Just when you were thinking it was going to happen, it would remind you of its true nature and crush that hope to pieces, leaving not a shred of its existence behind. After finishing his meal, Naruto thanked the old man and braced the cold atmosphere of the streets. He left with a bright smile. It wasn't so bad. Not like before. Pathetic. The hateful voice of the Kyuubi almost made him jump. Naruto wasn't used to the Biju talking to him. While in the hands of Orochimaru, the beast had settled for merely working hard to heal him. It had made it clear to him, if he died, it would also die. Maybe what was more pathetic was its cries to give it his body while he was at Orochimaru's mercy. The Biju had told him, if he gave it control, it would destroy Orochimaru and then move on to Konoha. He had considered it, but Naruto had decided against it. Maybe if Konoha hadn't found him when it did, he would have already given up. Orochimaru hadn't as much focused on trying to turn him, but he was most focused on trying to prove his hypothesis with the perfect subject for experiments. Naruto quickly shook his head. He was going to have nightmares now. Those treacherously painful days where he inwardly cried for help but it did not come. Orochimaru had been gleefully cutting him up, just to test his healing powers. He had commended on the Uzumaki gene, saying it was most superior compared the Senju in terms of its life force and superior chakra. Are you growing bored these days that you must taunt me like this, Kyuubi? There is nothing better. Who must I speak to if not my warden? The Biju grinned. While this all satisfyingly, I must admit I'm impressed that you have yet to break. Your repressed memories with Orochimaru nearly showed themselves while at the mission, but you didn't show a hint of it. Naruto's smile slipped. When you have lived your life hiding your emotions, wearing a mask becomes easy. I wonder how long you can hold on. You don't trust anyone to tell your secrets. Not even the Sandaime Hokage. You're all alone in this world. The only person you can trust is that Uchiha brat, but he isn't the one you can talk to. How sweet it is to be Naruto. Just break soon and I will be ready to pounce. Orochimaru may have been applying the suppression seal to keep him from influencing Naruto, but the seal did weaken since he was constantly pushing out his chakra. The more Naruto was exposed to the shinobi world, the likely it was that he was going to end up using Hick chakra, and Kurama would not waste the time to pounce. For now, he could wait. Unfortunately for you, there will be no mental breakdowns. I am made of hard stuff. I have not survived this hell just to wickedly break down like a little girl. Naruto said firmly. You just stay there rent-free. And when I need you, I will call for your chakra. Powerful chakra. Naruto had tasted it. He had let loose in one of Orochimaru's hideouts after all. Orochimaru hadn't known he could break free from bounds, but the Sannin had quickly held him down by suppressing the Kyuubi's chakra. In cases of need, there was one route to go, and that was using his ace, the vile chakra that would make Konoha tremble if he were to release it. With Jiraiya circling around, he was sure he was going to be forced to work on controlling it. When he arrived at his place, it was all dusty. It was like he'd been gone for years. He sighed, crappy places. He needed to live at a better place. He was getting paid better, so he could afford to live at a better place. But he was never going to get rid of this apartment. It was held much sentimental value. After all, this had become his safe zone. The last person Kurenai expected to see at her doorstep was Naruto. As far as she was concerned, he was still outside the village on a mission. When she opened her door and found him smiling, she had stood still, momentarily frozen. How did he know where she lived? She looked across the hall, just to see if there was anyone else looking. Once she was satisfied, she glanced back at Naruto. He now had a raised eyebrow. What? You are not supposed to be having your students at your place. Kurenai shook her head. She couldn't say things were different because he was Naruto. You're the last person I expected to see. She said. What are you doing here? Looking for a better place to stay. My apartment is old on the outside. There are many memories and I want to think of something new. Naruto explained lightly. Bad timing. Kurenai blinked. She was standing by the entrance, hands on the door as if she didn't want him to come inside. She shook her head. She opened the door and pushed to the side. Come in. Naruto shook his head. I'll want to stay a little longer. But I found this place by chance. And thought I'd check up on you to see when we can begin with our training sessions. You'll be free. Yes. Come see me tomorrow after 3 p.m. at my training ground. We will see then. I still have my other students to think about. Of course. Kurenai stared at Naruto for a moment. There were many thoughts that just bundled up in her head. With everything the Sandaime has said, it made her want to treat this delicately. You sure you don't want to come in? Oh, I want to come in, but I have other things I need to do. Like I said, I was just passing by. Maybe someday, he said, waving his right hand before turning away from her. Following day, no wonder I felt itchy. Naruto said as soon as he opened his door. Ino was standing there, hands around her waist with a look of impatience. As if she'd been standing there for a couple of hours. Ha ha ha, Ino fake laughed and then stared. Are you going to let me in? Naruto returned the stare. He got along quite nicely with the Yamanaka. He could even go as far as to paint a picture of friendship. Like Shikamaru, Ino expressed understanding. He had already judged her motives. But still, it didn't explain she'd just come to his place like this. For what purpose? He smiled slyly. I didn't think our relationship was like that. Ino rolled her eyes, now folding her hands across her chest. In your dreams, Uzumaki. She replied in a snap. Are you really not going to let me come in? Not unless you state your intentions. I'm being kind here. I could just decide to push you aside. I considered that, Naruto replied in thought. He then released a short breath and opened the door wide. Come on in, Ino-chan. He had his held out, a wide grin on his lips. That just made me feel a chill down my spine. Now that was uncalled for, Naruto closed the door behind him and stared at Ino's back with an expressionless look. It only lasted for a couple of seconds. You have a decent place, Uzumaki. I expected a mess for someone who lives alone. Well, I don't have anyone to do it for me, Naruto said as he stepped into the kitchen. His kitchen table was littered with scrolls. Ino was staring at them with curiosity. A questioning girl that has always liked digging into personal spaces of others. It didn't help that her father worked in intelligence gathering. Maybe she should have chosen that route instead of trying out the famed Ino-Shikacho formation. Maybe it wasn't too late. She still had time. Being a kunoichi didn't seem like it was on the high list of her agenda. You know, if you'd spent this kind of effort while at the academy, you'd have been one of the famous students. Naruto scoffed and responded in a sharp tone. Academy is useless. It didn't even help that some academy teachers were actively trying to sabotage me. The only teacher was good to me was Iruka. If I had been stupid enough without him, I'd have failed. Bitterly, he could thank Orochimaru for kidnapping him and subjecting him to some unspeakable things. It had taught him good lessons. He'd become more alert and the discovery had forced the Sandaime to give him some personal lessons while also providing him with some scrolls and books to help him learn. If not for that jolt, he would have most likely remained stupid and ignorant, even of the fact of the Kyuubi within him. Naruto's sharp tone caught Ino off guard. She stared at him for a moment and then tentatively sat down. Sucks being you, she replied, in a quiet tone. Smiling sadly, she added. Well, at least you have a friend in me. Really, I always thought you came closer just because you were curious. Shikamaru may have left some hints. And Sakura may have said some unflattering slander that you must have found difficult to reconcile and so you thought to get closer to satisfy yourself. I won't deny that. Ino smiled. She is better now, you know. Before, she never spoke anything good about you. Now, she even admits that you even save her life. Miracles happen, I suppose. Naruto said, folding his scrolls. Ino sighed. You don't have to be like that, you know. Naruto looked at her with a raised brow. I'm a little busy as you can see. And I have to meet Kurenai-sensei for my first lesson. Someone is in a cranky mood. Ino paused, staring. She then looked away and staring at the floor with nervousness gripping her tightly. I won't deny that I became close because I was curious. Besides, we have known each other for a long time, haven't we? You were the kid that saved Sakura from being bullied. She may act ignorant to it, but that is the truth. You've always been a delight. Despite my crush, being around you is a lot more comfortable than being around Sasuke. With him, you know he is never truly looking at you but past you. Besides, he is always brooding. You are the better person. Wish I had a recorder to keep a record of those words. I'm being serious here. Naruto laughed and then waved his right hand in a dismissive manner. I know, so, now that you're done with the prelude, what is the main subject? Ino stared back. Naruto wasn't an easy person to deal with. You think you had him figured out, but Ino couldn't really tell his thoughts. He smiled and laughed, but sometimes she wondered if he truly was smiling. He spoke a lot. And yet, there were many things he did not say. Perhaps that was what made him a curious subject to her. On the bonus side of things, he was easy to get along with. And it did always make Sakura mad that she was able to get along with the blonde. You host the QB. More or less, she blurted out. But the reaction surprised her. Could she even call it a reaction? Nothing in his face had changed. There was just a slightly raised eyebrow. I suppose it makes sense that you're the first person to talk to me about this. He replied with a sigh. Shikamaru. He may have hinted when we were talking about you. How'd that even come? I don't know. Maybe over that I get along with you. I see. Naruto paused, now staring at his scrolls. Let me pack up these things and we can walk out. I have to meet Kurenai-sensei. Don't want to be late. Rather be early. He smiled. Besides, I don't want to miss Kiba. His reactions are always amusing. Ino didn't respond but just watched him wrap the scrolls. But she knew, he wasn't going to meet Kurenai now. The reason they were going to take a walk was because of her statement. He hadn't even said anything about it. Once he was done, he motioned for her to follow him. They stepped out of the apartment and then went to the crowded streets. The atmosphere was always unusual when it came to walking with Naruto. The stairs, she had noticed, and Naruto's flamboyance regarding them. Sometimes when you live in a bubble, such things you cannot even see. It is surprising that despite being my teammate, Sakura does not know yet. She is even ignorant of what surrounds us as we walk along the streets. Admittedly, it is better now. Before, even a blind person would see it. That bad, huh? Ino said with emotion. I can imagine being in that situation. You don't have to. But like I said, things are different now. It is a little more subtle. But you'd still expect Sakura to notice such things. You hardly along the streets with her. Unnecessary to subject myself to her presence when home. But you're fine with Sasuke. Naruto shrugged. You know when Sasuke is around, her eyes become narrow. She doesn't look at anything else. And aren't you supposed to be the one to tell? Naruto shrugged. There is nothing really to tell. Are you afraid people will hate you? Naruto glanced at the girl. Who have you been speaking to? This is rather unusual. I may have overheard Kurenai and Asuma-sensei talking about you. Ino replied with a sheepish smile. That sounds like you. Naruto smiled while shaking his head. Not at all. It is just something I would rather not talk about. Hated. I'm already hated. It doesn't change much. That isn't very optimistic. But I don't think anyone will hate you. We went to the academy together. We all know you. She paused, smiling a little sadly. Certain things make sense. But aside from Chuji, Shika and of course, Sakura, there is no other person I can really call a friend who I could hang out with. I don't want that to change. You came to me just to talk about that. I wanted to confirm about that, Ino replied. Besides, Sakura was saying you use the Shodai Hokage's jutsu. Which is unbelievable. Why did you not tell me about this? I didn't know I should tell things. Well, this other night, I don't know, I was dreaming right, and when I don't want to hear. Ino shouted. But it's really good. I know where you were going with that. Be serious, okay. I suppose I must also tell you that I'm going to be a movie star. Sakura mentioned that in passing, Ino said with nonchalance. How come you use a rare bloodline like that we didn't even know about it? Naruto smiled. Well, maybe now you'll believe me when I say I'm going to be Hokage. Get liked first. Ino shot at Naruto. You just ignored my question. What question, Ino-chan? Naruto had a smile, sly look on his face. Did I mention that I missed you very much while away? It was kind of difficult not having someone who likes you when you get to see Sakura throwing all her love to Sasuke. Ino folded her hands across her chest. Who said I like you? Naruto put a hand on his mouth, wearing a shocked look. I was wrong about you. Actually, stop following me if you don't like me, he then paused, removing his hand from his mouth. A sly smile settled once more. Of course, you were thinking about a different like. I was talking about liking me as a person, what were you thinking about, Ino-chan? He finished in a slow tone, purposefully, his eyes firmly on the blonde. Ino flushed slightly and then shot him a glare. I'm just going to walk away from you. Naruto waved his right hand. Bye-bye. I'm not going to come around you again. Don't say things like that when you just can't resist me. I must truly discover this secret I hold if I was able to make you like me when you had been so infatuated with Konoha's prince. Doesn't take much for anyone to like someone over Sasuke-kun. Ino scoffed. He is handsome. But whoever gets around him and thinks clearly will realize just what kind of a person he is. Naruto laughed. What are you saying about Sakura, then? There is no hope for her. For Kurenai, this was a unique situation. Not long since being baptized into the sensei bath, she was now facing perhaps the most infamous person in the village. To say this was a challenge for any sensei would be an understatement. This was the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Maybe it wouldn't be if she looked past that. He was just a child. That much she knew and understood. She wondered though, how would the village even react if it found out about this? She shook her head. Did it matter if they know about this? She was doing this because Naruto had asked and she wanted to pass on her skills on someone else. Maybe she was overthinking things. She releases a long breath. Standing over Naruto was who was sitting under the shade of a tree, hands clapped together and his legs folded. He appeared to be meditating. When those closed eyes flashed open, the clear ocean blue watched her with a bit of iciness that made her curious. Meditating? She asked the obvious. Yes. Naruto nodded. It helps calm my chakra and get a feel of it. It isn't easy trying to gain the precise control needed. I realized some time ago that without proper control I wasted too much chakra. And now with genjutsu, more is required. I'm told you also have large amounts of chakra reserves. Just how much was something that had left her mouth agape. He was just a kid. A Jinchuriki, but to have as much chakra as Kakashi and the Sandaime clan the blonde had was just ridiculous. Naruto smiled. The blessing of being Uzumaki and a Jinchuriki. It was almost an unfair combination. Kurenai raised an eyebrow. Naruto even knew about the Uzumaki. Kurenai didn't know much either. It was all just history about the once great clan. Well, the Sandaime did warn her to be watchful of what Naruto says and to watch over him after what happened with Orochimaru. A tragedy that he apparently was loath to discuss. She wasn't going to start working the angles about it. She had a job and that was one he requested. If he spoke, then she would not deny him. She settled down across him and then spoke. You said you didn't want to learn how to use it in that way. I honestly don't know how to go about this. Naruto shook his head. Learning all shinobi arts isn't a bad thing. If I can learn genjutsu, I can do so. I primarily use ninjutsu when I fight. But as it has been made obvious to me, genjutsu is also effective. You don't know a single genjutsu. Naruto shook his head. But I know there are different ways in which genjutsu can be used. There is your way. The other with dojutsu like the Sharingan. And there are sound-based genjutsu. I have not found any, but I've heard there are. I'll teach you a simple genjutsu and then we can take it from there. I have no problem with that. However, I want to know the basic structure of genjutsu. On me and on the target. What is does to the target and what happens to the chakra flow when I dispel the illusion? Is it just the senses that it affects or is the central nerves? Is that your take when you learn ninjutsu? Naruto smiled. It is something the Sandaime Hokage taught me. I was struggling to work out any Mokuton jutsu in ways that worked out. So, he told me that I have to be able to understand the nature of the jutsu I was using from its structure. He is honestly a genius as he is claimed. The way he understands jutsu and the way he is able to break it down is just amazing. You were trained by the third. No, he just taught me a few things when I was growing frustrated with my lack of progress. Maybe because his frustrations led to a leak of the Kyuubi's chakra. But genuinely, the old man just cared for him and did want to see him progress in his training. Kurenai accepted Naruto's response and then stood up. Let us start. Sakura glanced at Naruto and then at Sasuke, who was busy glaring at Naruto. The blonde was doing his utmost best to ignore him. A week ago, she would have been yelling at him about it. But she now understood she couldn't get in between the relationship between her teammates. Their bond was much greater than she liked to admit. In fact, even those thoughts repulsed her. She was contemptuous to this relationship that just seemed far beyond her no matter how much she struggled to try to claim it. She was going to get better nonetheless. She has no other option. Anything less and she would be kicked out from the team. A heartbreaking scenario that gave her some nightmares. The part of her that she kept closed on a closet wanted nothing more than to blame Kakashi for her near dismissal from the team. He was the one in charge. She was a reflection of his lessons. Do I owe you something? Sakura blinked, feeling that Naruto was actually speaking to her. She'd been staring, she thought mildly. Sasuke was still glaring. She wondered if it was right to respond. After a moment, she shook her head and then answered. No. She frowned deeply. What have you been busy with? I haven't seen you over the past week. Busy. Naruto raised an eyebrow. You wanted to see me. Why do you sound surprised? Well, since you are taking things a bit seriously, I'd imagine that you'd also take an extra step with Sasuke. I mean going after him to help you train. Who knows? You could have bonded. Why hadn't she thought of that? Sakura quickly crushed her thoughts when Naruto's amused look threatened to turn into a laugh. Very funny. She glared. Naruto shrugged. Thought so. He paused, looking at her keenly. You making any improvements? I figure out vacation is going to end very soon. Vacation. Sakura rolled her eyes. I'm still working with Kakashi-sensei on the best way to train. She paused, trying to gather her thoughts. Say, Naruto, would you have fought for me if I was to be taken out of the team? Naruto smiled. In such cases, there was one right answer. Lies, of course. But sometimes they worked wonders to butter up someone. Still, Naruto disliked feeding Sakura lies. She would not grow. Perhaps he was at times brutally honest with her. Would he have fought for her? A waste of time. Irrational even. There was nothing to gain. Sakura was not his best friend. She had attitude problems and could not appreciate his worth. That is an interesting question. He glanced up at Sasuke. What would we have done, Sasuke? Don't drag me into it. Aren't you her teammate as well? Sasuke glared down at Naruto. He wasn't too mad not to notice what the blonde was doing. He would not fall for it. Not this time. Naruto didn't want to answer. He wanted him to give an answer knowing that he wasn't going to lie. But in this case, anything brutal from him might kill the girl's spirits and she might even become more of a burden. Or maybe not. She could be more motivated to prove them wrong. In any case, whatever happens, Naruto wouldn't complain. And it wouldn't have been his fault. Now, that isn't a nice look to a teammate, Sasu-chan. Sasuke didn't reply. Naruto faced Sakura. Tell me, for what reason would I fight for you? We are teammates. Naruto stared at her and then laughed. Stop joking, Sakura. When have you ever treated me like a teammate? Besides, what good are you in a team? Kakashi appeared in a puff of smoke to stop any farther talk. I see you are all here, the Jonin said with a nice smile. We going back to missions? Kakashi shook his head. An invite came from Iwagakure for participating in the Chunin exams. Konoha has intentions to send teams to the nation. But nobody is forced to go unless it is a mission. If you participate and do well, you can be promoted to Chunin. If you are interested, we can go there. Predictably, Naruto was the first to respond. And Sasuke supported his motion. There is no need to even ask. Sensei, I think we are ready to become Chunin. Maybe we will do better missions. The glaring question was Sakura. But Naruto wasn't going to say a damn word about it. Nothing was going to ruin this chance. It would be good to test ourselves against others from other villages. Sasuke failed to contain his grin. Sakura was going to take whatever her teammates decided. She basically followed the direction of the wind in such situations. Kakashi sighed with disappointment. Not at her but himself for allowing this to continue. It wasn't like he didn't see anything. He just thought she would grow on her own, like her teammates. But there was nothing motivating her. I thought you'd say this. We have a couple of days to prepare. Well, I'm always ready. Naruto said as he stood up. Team, I should hope you take this seriously. It would be laughable if I come back with a promotion and you return with failure. Sasuke responded by jumping from the tree. He landed on front of the blonde, a hard glare on his eyes. Naruto could feel the hot breath from the Uchiha. The Sharingan flashed for a second and Naruto smiled. Oh dear, someone is very serious. I suppose it is on. May the better shinobi win, Sasu-chan. Better shinobi. Sasuke scoffed. I've always been the better shinobi. Whatever strokes our pride. Naruto glanced at Kakashi through the corner of his eyes. In these days, you're going to help us prepare, right? If so, must we prepare weapons for training? Or will we be focused on something specific? Kakashi shook his head. We will cover all the basics. I want you to be fully prepared. The exams are a showcase for future generation talent. We can only afford to represent Konoha well. I see. Naruto responded. We start tomorrow then. Yes. Be here by 8 a.m. I'll be around by 6, Naruto replied as he started to walk away. But Kakashi stopped him. The Jonin requested to speak to him privately. Naruto nodded and the Jonin took him up to the Hokage monument. The air was fresh as always. It was always a pleasant feeling, overlooking the tiny people walking along the village streets. Naruto took in the air for a couple of moments before glancing at the Jonin standing on his right side. You already know there is a problem with Orochimaru. The village has resolved it wants to get rid of him. He has shown interest in both you and Sasuke. There is no doubt that he might try to take you again. One of the reasons the village has decided he needs to be dealt with. Kakashi spoke in a hardened tone. They were talking about Orochimaru. So, it was understandable that the Jonin could speak about getting rid of him so simply as if it would be like batting a fly. So if we leave for the mission, there are chances he might make a move. Yes. Naruto disliked this kind of living. Konoha was safe but he couldn't be confined in this place. He would go insane if that happened. So what happens now? You just have to know that anything can happen. We will have a squad of Anbu tailing us just in case. Jiraiya-sama will also be on standby. Naruto smiled. Bait. Something like that. Well, if it gets Orochimaru crippled, I can't complain. Naruto responded in a quiet tone. One more thing. Kakashi said. Iwa must not know you are a Jinchuriki. A Jinchuriki who uses Mokuton will unnerve many people and create problems. They'll be more worried if I do too well without revealing the power and they later learn I'm a Jinchuriki. And I intend to decimate all my opponents. He paused. Is Sakura going? She isn't capable to chase after promotion. She is. But I could get someone else if you don't want her. She isn't the least ready. People die in the Chunin exams. Taking her with you means taking a burden. Naruto smiled. Well, better. If we leave her behind, she is never coming back into the team. But if we take her with us, it will be brutal. She will suffer. There is no better teacher than experience. We've always shielded her. It will be best if we let her suffer a little. Get her to that situation where she is at a corner and neither Sasuke or I there to save her. Once she experiences this, I tell you, she will repent. If not, prepare a report to send her back to the academy. A collapsed building. Destroyed with just debris flying before her. Tsunade released a long breath and then stared down at the two shinobi lying, dead before her. They'd suddenly attacked, setting off an explosion that would have been dangerous had she been completely out of it. If they had been smart enough, they could have waited. For the moment she could do nothing but just roll over with her brain intoxicated by alcohol, depending on Shizune for security. The shinobi were just simple rogue things. But more danger was about to come. If Hiruzen was serious, he would send his shinobi. Or maybe even Jiraiya. But the fact that she was in this situation just meant that she was already in the bingo book. A rogue shinobi, she'd been marked. It was ridiculous. Something had happened to her sensei. Old age hadn't made him take the necessary decisions. Timid and naive. That was what his old age brought out in him. Not this. More shinobi are going to show up. Shizune said. Undeniably. Nobody was going to miss out on the millions on her head. Even when they knew she was powerful, they'd not stop taking chances. We will have to be always on the lookout. Can't sleep with both eyes opened. Konoha doesn't have to do anything. We are going to be hunted wherever we go. What do we do? What do you think? Tsunade snapped, unintentionally. It was just frustrating that she had to be forced into this situation. Boom. What now? It was a smoke bomb. Shizune was on alert as the smoke filled through her, blinding her. There was no time to do anything. Firm hands grabbed her and pulled her from the smoke. Tsunade-sama. Tsunade twisted around. Atop of a building, masked men were holding Shizune hostage. Their masks. She recognized them. You're Anbu from Konoha. What do you want? Shizune has been ordered back to Konoha by the Hokage. We are to return with her immediately. The Sandaime Hokage expresses hope that you'll also return home, soon. If not, Hunter Nin will be activated. As if I'm afraid of Hunter Nin. You're far too powerful for Hunter Nin. Bounty hunters won't care though. They just want money. For Konoha Hunter Nin, the mission won't be to fight you head on. But just to make you uncomfortable. Just when you attempt to sleep, they might strike. Or when you're busy fighting other who give you a challenge, they might strike. The Sandaime hopes you stay sober, Tsunade-sama. And just like that, the Anbu vanished along with Tsunade. Damn it. Tsunade shouted angrily, stomping on the ground. No matter how you looked at it, this was just devious. Having Jiraiya come at her seemed like it would be the last option. But for now, that damn old man seemed content to make her uncomfortable enough to return to Konoha on her own without being dragged kicking and screaming. She hated this. After everything she has done for the Leaf, this was how her sensei was going to thank her. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.